friend of mine was like telling me that there have been a bunch of fires, like not just in Southern California, but also in like on the East Coast. I know that in the Bronx there was a fire that displaced like 100 people at least. And I know that there were other fires like in upstate New York. And also there was like a couple of weeks ago, actually New Year's Eve, there was a fire in my building, and then like the trash chute was on fire and caused a flood. But prior to that, maybe the day before, there was a fire across the street, and it was like huge. A building was on fire. So people are saying that maybe it's because of Mars being retrograde, but to me, instinctively and intuitively, that doesn't really make any sense, because that seems like the opposite of what would happen with Mars in retrograde. Like, there isn't firepower, is like what Mars in retrograde would mean to me. Or Mars retrograde, excuse me, not Mars in retrograde. It can't be in retrograde. Something cannot be in retrograde. It can be retrograde, but it can't be in retrograde. So then other folks are saying that it's the solar flares, and I just want to see like what's up with all of these fires. And so I'm asking Most High Divine Creator, great gods, guides, and ancestors. I have asked already, but I would love to get some clarity about the fires that are happening. And what I have been picking up on intuitively, like, I know people want to know, like, are the fires genuine? Like, are they accidental, or is it because of, like, are people setting them, quote unquote, an inside job? And I need to preface this with, first of all, this is all alleged, and this is for like entertainment and educational purposes only. I don't like, I'm not swearing by anything by any means, but I also want to say that at the end of the day, real people are suffering because of them. So whether or not they are intentionally being set and created or not is not nearly as important as like showing up for those people who are being affected, and being of support and helping those people, because they need that. And so, I mean, a lot of people obviously think that like all of the natural disasters that have been happening, and I want to call them unnatural disasters, because what is happening climate-wise is not natural. And I know that, yes, the planet is spinning faster and like, you know, all of this stuff, but the people who talk about that as like, oh, climate change isn't real, whatever caused it, it doesn't fucking matter. It's happening. It is changing. That much is a fucking fact. So, like, get a fucking grip. That's what you need to know, and that's what I have to say about that. Like, the reason isn't important. What is happening is happening. And, I mean, I guess the reason is actually important. But in terms of, like, people being climate change deniers, that is BS. And I think that a lot of people are picking up psyops that are, quite frankly, very racialized, because I, as a Black person, see a lot of Black people being like, oh, like, it's not real because we're just going back to the way that the climate was before. And it's just like, also oftentimes it's Americans saying this, and it's like, that's because everybody else, like, outside of the Western world, everybody else in the global South has already been experiencing the effects, the devastating effects of the climate catastrophe. They've, like, and it is a catastrophe. Like, whether or not, regardless of why it's happening, it is catastrophic. okay? And they're already experiencing the catastrophic effects of that, like for years and years, decades even, okay? But these people want to say, oh, like, it's not and act like it's not a big deal because it hasn't happened to them. But now that it's on your doorstep, now that it's happening to you, and you still want to act like it's not a big deal, like, honestly, the lack of empathy is alarming and astounding. And you might think that just because of like your ethnic background that you will be spared, but you won't. And here now is the time of judgment and the tests, sitting at the crossroads. And you might think that you automatically pass, but it's not true. You don't. Nobody gets a free pass. Everybody has to actually pass the test. And it's not even a test. It's like, are you going to be able to get through the door? Are you going to be able to get past the threshold? Are you going to be able to get through the gate? And a lot of you, the answer is no, because you're entitled and self-serving, self-obsessed, self-involved. And it's a really bad look because you look mad stupid saying the dumbass shit that a lot of you be saying. So that's just like one of the first things that I want to say. And then otherwise, having shuffled my cards a little bit, I'm seeing a 5 of Wands in the reverse at the bottom of the deck. So I don't think that like it is because of like being attacked or anything. I think that it is genuinely like a lot of these fires are because of the climate catastrophe. This is the consequences. And like these are long, like it's the long game, you know what I mean? Like it took this long for the manifestations of the destructive behaviors from colonialism to manifest themselves, and that's what's happening. Like, and it is, the ancestors are getting revenge because they are purging the sickness and the disease that is in the land. They are purging it, and not, not everybody needs to be afraid of that. But you need to listen and you need to follow your intuition and you need to like be prepared and be smart. You know what I mean? Like you need to be prepared and you need to be smart about like how to move in these times. If you want to keep pretending that what's happening isn't happening, then you know what I have to say is good luck. Good luck with that. In terms of the other ones, like the Bronx one, I feel like it was on purpose, and it is like so that they can further gentrify the Bronx. It's the exact same thing from when from the 70s for sure. And what's funny to me is that like it makes me think of actually what's been coming up for me a lot. Rather, it's not necessarily that it makes me think of this, but it's what's been surfacing for me. And so I see that it's like very much aligned is a series of unfortunate events when they had the firefighters, the volunteer fire department, and so I had to stop briefly, so because I was in transit, but yeah, what I picked up was that the same reason that what they're doing in the Bronx, like the fire that was in the Bronx was not, I'm keep picking it up of like, oh, it was not intentional or it was an accident, but it's not. Like they want people to think that it's an accident. They're gonna try and make people think that it was an accident, but it's not an accident. Like it was on purpose. And it was the same thing that happened in the 70s is the same thing that's happening now. And they are doing that because they really desperately want to like gentrify the Bronx, but people are not moving out of the Bronx. They're not selling their houses like they did in Brooklyn and in Harlem. They've learned their lesson and they're not going to do it. And they desperately want to colonize the Bronx. But it's not. So that's why they had. So we're going to see more fires actually up there, because that's what they're doing, is arson. And what I picked up when I like paused was that there are people, what is it, like, even though what is happening in Los Angeles is like, that is like the sun is working with the planet, and like, yes, so solar flares do play into it, and that like the sun and the earth like are coming together to push out all of this like witchcraft, honestly, because like when you do roots, like you have to bury it in the earth, and that's how like it's like driving a stake in the ground to set a foundation. So the foundation of the corruption that exists is through the roots that were like set down, and they're in the ground. And that's why these fires are happening. It really is natural, but then some people are using these fires alongside what is naturally happening to commit crimes and attempt to obstruct justice, if you know what I mean. And I would also say, like, in terms of what my friend told me about upstate, I would say that is, some of these things are just like, it's just normal stuff. It's just happening, you know what I mean? Like, sometimes fires happen, but I don't know if I got to the point. I think I started talking about this, but then I stopped. What's been coming up for me is around a series of unfortunate events. So they had like the volunteer fire department, and there was like the schism between the volunteer fire departments. Like, some people wanted to do it like one way, and then like some people, then other people wanted to do it another way, and they had a schism, they had an issue, and then the opposition team, not the VFD, started like setting things on fire. And a lot has been coming up for me, like just in the ethers, about like setting things on fire, obviously, but like specifically about a series of unfortunate events, particularly back around Christmas time. I saw some things online about that, and then I also I saw some things online about that, but then I also I think a friend was talking about it. I saw several different things about it around Christmas time. And so, yeah, I do feel like part of this has to do, obviously, war in heaven, you know, dueling dragons, civil war, we understand that. And so another thing that I picked up when I was like talking to the friend that I sent, that I'm like, was asking questions that triggered me to do this reading. They are like trying to make these kinds of cities, right, that are considered to be able to get anywhere and do anything that you need to do within a certain time frame, right? And they are cities of a certain intelligence level. And you're not allowed to talk about this on certain platforms, otherwise you can get in a lot of trouble. And that's like what's going on Yeah, that's what's going on in sorry, like I'm so confused because something happened that like is taking my psychic focus, but let me ground for a second. Okay, yes. So what I picked up is that, like, you know, these bad actors are obviously servants of like higher ranking, more powerful beings. I'm seeing the letter X on the ground. And oh my God, well, there you go. There's an app that starts with, that is called that, but yeah, the letter X. And I'm also picking up 10. It's the end. It's the end. Like, even though this is like a 9-year, 2025, it may seem like it's the end. It may not seem like it's the end, but it is what I'm picking up. Especially if you are somebody who's like ahead of the curve. It may not seem like it is the end, but it is actually. And what I'm picking up also is that part of their contractual obligations to their overlords is that they had to like do certain things or deliver on certain things in a certain time period, and they're rushing to do that. So this is why like they're quite desperate to get like things done, because things have to happen at a certain time, because they know what most people don't know, which is like the cosmic calendar, the timeline, the sequence of events, that like how things are going to happen. I'm picking up a series of unfortunate events again, because those kids obviously were like, they just had really fucked up lives, really terrible lives. There's 3 of them. They just like had fucked up terrible lives, which is terrible. And that's why it's called a series of unfortunate events. It's like every time they would go somewhere, either the people were insane and terrible, or they were like amazing and good and they loved them, but then those people would die, or like something would happen where they would be taken out of those situations. So some of you listening to this reading may, or this channeling really, may relate to that like experience. And if you do, then I say to you, sorry, because that really fucking sucks. Yeah, so I paused because there was like a fire truck going. There have been so many fire trucks going lately, like more than usual, honestly. And I've also noticed like, I've noticed that, and then I've also felt like, yeah, there have been a lot of fire trucks going. That has been something I've noticed. And then there's actually been a lot of fires happening. And that is because like the earth is purging. But like those, you might identify as somebody who's had that experience of like having just a really bad experience of life for overall. Like, yeah, there may have been some like spots or like parts of your life that were like, you know, relatively decent or like okay, or maybe a little bit good, like something really great happened, but overall, like it was just a really painful experience, and it just kept, no matter what you did, it just like didn't work out the way that it should have, like if there were no external factors. And if that is the case for you, then it is like a supernatural reason for why you're experiencing this. And I would encourage you to, you know, book a session with me, whether it's a reading or an oracle healing session. I encourage you to get an oracle healing session, so that we can like at least start getting down to like the important work of like clearing out your bloodlines and clearing out your lineage. I would also say that, you know, there's self-sovereignty guidance, which I sell those in packages of 3, 6, 9, and 12. And we would build together your practice of liberation from the chains that bind. And I also want you to know, if that's not something that's like interesting or accessible to you, that's okay, because yeah, I do have like the Mysteries newsletter membership tier, like the premium tier, where like we learn together. But more than that, it's okay, because like this is coming to an end. Like what's happening right now, just know that like the earth is doing what it needs to do. Like all of the cosmos are working together for your liberation and your freedom, because when the earth is liberated, so are you as an earthling. So yeah, they can try. They're like, these people, the plutocrats, like they're like rushing because they're scared of like not being able to deliver on whatever it was that they promised to their overlords, which would create more chaos and like mental and emotional damage. It's just, what I'm picking up is like, it's not going to happen. Like the wars that they're trying to do, like further oligarchy and all that stuff, like it's not going to happen. Like ultimately what's going to happen in the next 10 years is liberation, and it might look like destruction to everyone, but like the framework of slavery, the spiritual enslavement, mental enslavement, emotional, like mental, or I said that already, but like spiritual, yeah, everything, energetic, like siphoning, like exploitation, all of that stuff that like comes from colonialism, that is being abolished now. And that's being removed and destroyed. And like it's been a long time coming. It's been coming for a long time. And like a lot of what, like if you have like had an adverse experience in these times, especially in the past like 4 years, I would say that's because like you signed up to, you know, be a transmutation point for the karma of this planet. If you're an earth seed or like an earth angel, that's what you signed up to do. So unfortunately, your body is a battleground, and I love you all truly and deeply. I hope that this was helpful. I hope that it was insightful. If you don't identify with any of this stuff, that's totally fine. It's entertainment and educational purposes only. Everything is alleged that I'm saying, but just know that like there's a combination of things that are going on, and the ancestors have already won. The spiritual war is already won, and it's all good. I love you all truly and deeply, and I hope that you have a great rest of the day.